Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I am delighted to be joined by Liam Carrigan and also Jerry Taylor. We are here. Liam, you're representing Celtic Down Under. Last time you were on, I believe that you were rocking a Superman top. Now it's Batman, and who's going to be next?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I probably really should do Green Lantern at some point just for the colour coordination, shouldn't I?
That would be nice. That would be nice. Talking about Superman and Batman, kind of puts me in the mind of the Super Grand theme tune as sung by Billy Connolly. Who remembers that? Jerry, you remember that?
I remember Super Grand, but I didn't know Billy Connolly sang the theme tune, did he?
Oh, he did. He did. There's some great footage of him out there. By the way, we're digressing far too soon in the show here. Another tough away fixture for Brendan Rodgers' men at Easter Road. Let's get stuck in about it, Jerry. Was I just cutting you off there?
No, I'm just Googling the Super Grand theme tune now.
Oh, yeah. Aye. Billy Connolly.
I'm just impressed that we've been talking about grannies for 2 minutes and nobody's mentioned Wayne Rooney. Well done, boys. Well done.
Absolutely. I was reading this morning, actually, young James was talking about Brendan Rodgers' record at Easter Road, Liam. You tend to forget it wasn't a happy hunting ground for him first time round. Does that play any part at all in Brendan Rodgers' state of mind going into this game? I'm just kind of thinking it was a different lifetime ago.
No, I mean, he's a different manager now. Celtic are a completely different team now. Easter Road isn't an easy place to go. Hibs are a decent team, and I'll be the first to admit I don't know very much about this new manager they've got, but Jared rates him very highly, and he knows his stuff when it comes to Australian football. So he says that this guy is going to get Hibs going the right way, and I don't think they can play as badly as they did last week, 2 weeks in a row. So we need to be careful.
I think we do, and you know this. We've had the supercomputer thrown up a few things that are being questioned by Brendan. Fair play to Brendan Rodgers. He's not taking any of the nonsense. He's taking it full on, head first, and he's talking about things like the fact that the post-Christmas fixture isn't fair on Celtic fans, etc. But listen, we've stepped up to every single challenge, Jerry. We're going to Easter Road. It is another challenge to overcome. And obviously, Brendan has named the replacement for Rio Atati in the midfield. Before we talk about it, we're going to bring in our fourth contributor of the day, all the way in from New Zealand. It's Ian Conroy. Ian, how are you?
Hi guys, how you doing?
Absolutely. How's it going, buddy?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It'll be late where you are, isn't it? It's going to be a late time viewing for you.
It's just after 2:30.
2:30 in the morning. Oh my
Is
God.
it?
See the dedication of you guys and Liam, and
really?
Honestly.
It's only half 10 here. It's only half 10 here. I'm only pulling a slight late shift. What you're doing, mate, is completely off the radar.
That bends my mind, by the way.
Oh.
I know, especially when you score and you cheer and you wake up the house.
I know it's that suppressed.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. As if JP sometimes gets tickets for away games and he'll get them by hook or by crook, even if it means going into the away end. And so he's done a few of these suppressed celebrations over the years as well. We're talking about the lineup. The first big one actually is the only change of the starting 11, and it's Paolo Bernardo. We were talking about Bernabe earlier on. It's certainly not him. Bernardo has stepped in for Hatate. I'll start with yourself, Jerry. I think it was a bit of an understated performance by Bernardo, but then people started posting the stats and how well he actually did the other night. I thought he did really, really well, really composed, and I'm not really surprised he's been picked to replace Rio Atati today.
No, hold on 2 seconds. Oh, it's no working. Wait, I've got a ring light now. Does that make any difference whatsoever?
Maybe you should send it to the Shamrock Shadow over in Ireland.
I know.
After the stick he was getting the other day.
I know. I told him he should get his lighting fixed, but then do the whole show in a black morph suit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Keep that image.
Rebel against all the comments. I mean, Bernardo, I said before, Jerry, the fact we've got a couple of loanees in, and they seem to be getting a nod over guys like Odin Holm and Gustav Lagerbielke. But the way Brendan is playing this, he's just playing his strongest team, isn't he?
Yeah. I was delighted, not delighted, when Hatate went off, by the way. See that emotion that was felt on the ground? Mm-hmm. When you saw, like, I was quite a distance away, but you could see just by his body language how upset he was that he was crying. And that cuddle that Brendan Rodgers gave him, it seemed to kind of add to the atmosphere as well. And it was like,
did you just turn into wee James and give him one as well?
By the way, I'll tell you all about my day with James, right? I took him on a wee date. I'll give you a blow-by-blow account. I'll give you an account of how it went anyway. So,
prepare yourself, Liam.
I was watching Liam's wee box there. Is that square even? Move on. Right. So, anyway, it was a tough time, right, for Hatate go off because he's, to quote what they were saying on another on Super Scoreboard, they kept saying he was hitting his purple patch. And he really was, and it was so sad. That's why he was so emotional, because he's like so close, but yet so far again. But when Bernardo came on, I was you know that feeling you get that you just go, do you know what? This might just be for you today. This might be for you. I had a good feeling, and I tend to watch the players off the ball a lot when I'm at the games, because you get that chance to do that, and I loved how he was playing. A couple of obviously rusty bits, mistakes and stuff, but I think he looks a really, really good player. And like I say, such a shame for Hatate, because do you know the time we had at the ball at times, especially there was a spell in the second half where I felt they were sitting off us a bit, and I just thought this was primed for one of those Hatate passes just to unlock that defence, because they were getting a lot of time on the ball. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we always said, I think we said a few months ago, it's going to take an injury for some of these guys, like the likes of Liam Scales and the likes of Bernardo. So let's see how he copes in the domestic game, though, because, like I said, he was getting a bit more time, and who knows? Some of these players can get that come down effect. You know what I mean? After that atmosphere was electric. I mean, outstanding the other night. So hopefully he'll kick on from it, and he won't, kind of go on a downer after it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with players, though, Jerry, in the past, guys that can raise their game for the big nights. And then, obviously, there is that come down. And, people used to say, can you do it at Brockville on a Tuesday night or a wet Tuesday night? And I remember Neil Lennon talking about Samaras. You could always rely on him, if you're playing Barcelona. And then Ross County maybe didn't fancy it. So I totally get that. There is a bit of that step down. Talking of keeping the jersey, and you use Scales as an example there. Ian, they were talking, Brendan Rodgers last night, talking about the fact that it's your jersey and it's your jersey to keep. And I think, that's a good mantra to have, because it's worked with Scales. You don't drop him as soon as Novrocky comes back in. You only drop him if it's necessary due to form. And I think that's true to say. After 10 minutes or 5 minutes of the game against Atletico Madrid, Bernardo comes in, equips himself really, really well, played 90 minutes of football against top-class opposition, and I thought he came through it really, confidently. So he deserves his place in the team for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. What's the motivation? If you got a competitive bench, and you got and you get someone comes in and does well through injury or for whatever reason, and they simply get dropped as soon as the person they replace comes back into. Where's the motivation to put your all in? And think you're gonna get that chance. So I agree with that ethos. I thought the boy played really well. We seem to have a good success rate from getting players from Benfica. So fingers crossed, Bernardo is the next one. And the only way you can prove that is getting minutes on the pitch. So when sort of one door closes, another one opens. Unfortunately, Hatate, one of the polished gems that we've come to love, and he's coming into his own. It's a shame he's got that injury, but it's a chance for Bernardo to shine now. So I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of him.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. We haven't seen a great deal of him, and some of the other new additions to the team. Liam, were you impressed with Bernardo, and also the other loanee, Nat Phillips, when he came on, and we changed the shape at the back, didn't we? So how impressed were you with the two loanees?
Yeah, I think Bernardo, it's very difficult to come into a game like that, especially when you're replacing the guy that everyone's kind of looking to as one of the main men. If we were going to win that game on Tuesday night, a lot of us were thinking Hatate was the guy who was going to make it happen. And then early on he gets crocked, and it's a horrible time to get injured. It's a horrible injury. It's a horrible situation all around. But Bernardo stepped up. He went in there and did his job, and I think did it well. And he's in the team today on merit, because while Hatate's out the team, he showed the other night he's the next best thing we've got for that position. It's a bit of it's good man management from two sides. On one hand, I think it's really good for Bernardo because he put in a good performance the other night and he's been rewarded with a start. That's it. When you're a squad player, that's exactly what you want. You want the manager to show faith in you and say, look, son, you played well the other night. Go ahead and start. So that's what happened. And now the other aspect to it is, I think, particularly for Thiago Holm, I notice he's not really featured much recently. And I think this is just a wee reminder to him, wind your neck in, son. Stop with the Todd Cantwell acts on social media and whatever, and just, get your head down in the training ground. And I think that will serve him well in the fullness of time as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'd agree with that because I think he was quite impressive, Liam. But there was always that other conversation we were having about Odin Home, a wee bit of a lack of discipline and on and off the park. I mean, people might think that you're reading too much into the social media output, but it's part and parcel of the game now. It can still give you a misdemeanor as a footballer. It can annoy your club. It can annoy your manager. And, we've gone on about Chris Jullien and Giakoumakis' use of the social media platforms, and of course Odin Home was being discussed around that as well. But you're right, I mean, he has dropped out of the picture at the moment. I'm being asked here by Paddy Burns, what is the team? So for anyone who hasn't heard, it's Joe Hart in goals with Alistair Johnston at right back and Greg Taylor at left back, the central defensive partnership of Carter Vickers and Scales, with the trio in the midfield of McGregor, Bernardo and O'Reilly, and then up top Palma, Maeda and Kyogo. On the bench, Bain, Phillips, Yang, Turnbull, Iwata, Forrest, Ralston and Mikey Johnson. We've got two Johnsons in the team. Paddy Burns goes on to ask, why is the game not on Sky? It's a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, so you've got that arrangement, the blackout, the TV blackout as they call it. Now, when you read through that team line, though, Stephen Sloan picks up on this. There's no Home in the squad, no Lagerbielk, Novroski, Rio Tati injured, Welsh, Kobayashi, Abada injured, Tilio, Kwon, Alexandro, Bernabe, McCarthy, and Siegrist. Now, how many players is that? A very quick count here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. A whole team not in the squad. Jerry, listen, we've spoken about this. There's a wider issue here, isn't there? Because you need the squad. You need the depth of the squad if you want to compete in 4 tournaments as we do year in, year out. But what then happens is you get the crux of your 17, I think, is what Brendan Rodgers likes to have, 17 kind of core group of players. And then you end up, like Stephen says there, with a whole host of players kicking their heels or not on the bench. They can't play for the B team. What do you do with them? There's a situation at the moment, and it's not made by Celtic. It's not been created by Celtic. But you're going to have these guys stagnating. Some of the guys we've not seen at all this season. And it's for me, it's an issue. It's very difficult to manage. It's difficult not only to keep them fit, but to keep them sharp upstairs so that when you throw them in, they're ready for the challenge as well, Jerry.
Yeah. Can they not just send them to St. Roch's every second week and we'll play them?
We could. I'm not too sure, right, if the old boys would do as well as this team. I mean, listen, let's be honest, right? You look at that and we can be quite disparaging sometimes to some of the fringe players. Put that team together and it would compete in Scottish football.
I think what Brendan was doing when he came in, and obviously Ange had done a lot of the kind of groundwork early on with the signings coming in, and Brendan being who he is, I think he's just went, well, look, I'm not going to step in the way of that. Let them come in, I'll assess them. I think he's assessed a few of them now and realises that he needs to bring his own in. So with the likes of your Kwons and your Tilios, even your Holmes, I don't know with Holmes if it's a discipline thing or because he has looked a real player at times. So I just don't know if he's still a bit wet behind the ears and he's going to go out on a loan on January. But it's a lot of... What is it we changed it to? Remember, we didn't say deadwood, a lot of driftwood. There's a lot of driftwood.
Sounded a wee bit better, eh?
We
start talking about players as if they're commodity. And, take Bernabe, for example, just one player from that list that Stephen's put up on the screen there. Bernabe's he's a young guy. He's come over from Argentina, famously the first Argentinian to play for Celtic. He's had a few personal issues. And it's like, as football fans, you just think, right, drop him, or where is he, or this or that. But at the end of the day, he might be, deeply unhappy with the situation at this moment in time. There might be a few of the guys dealing with personal issues, and we don't tend to consider that, Ian. You know, Burnaby, it'd be great management if, for example, Brendan Rodgers says to somebody like that, listen, you're having a hard time, you're not on my plans now, away home for a month or two, because he's not been seen. Nobody really knows what the situation is with the player, but I'm pretty confident in Rodgers that, you know, there was an old school mentality before, Ian, whereby players were banished to the third team or training with the kids and all that stuff. I'm not quite sure Brendan works like that.
It's like you hit a point before. It's true. They're not commodities. They're human beings. Quite often you see when clubs have signed players over the years from distant shores, they've signed somebody else as well, like their brother or their mate. You know, so they've had someone else to have. So you've got the talented one, so to speak, and you have maybe the less so one who plays in the reserves or whatever. You know. But so I don't know what sort of infrastructure is around about Burnaby backstage. But he's a young kid, you know, and he looks like he looks like he's got a lot of energy. He looks like he's got a lot of attitude, you know. He looks like there's something about him. Wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think, who knows what's happening behind the scenes. But I do think there's a player there. For whatever reason, it's going to be. It's one of the thing as a club at Celtic. How many chances do you get? If it was maybe sort of a lesser club in terms of expectation, maybe get more chance to bed in and get games under his belt, make some mistakes, you know, and become the true self, you know, his true self, the true player he could be. But at Celtic, you don't get that chance because of the competition of places, as we've just spoken about. That's my 2 cents.
I think with Burnaby, it is, you know, a habit. It's habitual within football fans where we can write a player off. But I've done it. I've done it with Burnaby, Siegrist and Kobayashi from that list. James McCarthy has not featured for a long, long time. I'm going to say, is it February? Liam, I'm not quite sure. Was it February last time he made an appearance for Celtic? That's a long time without football. And for someone who is at a stage where he wasn't playing much games in the last 5 years anyway, you look at that and you think, right, it's twofold. You've got to use the loan market well, and I think we have done. But some of the guys in that list, you're actually putting them out on loan because it's with a view to, you know, creating a pathway out of the club, rather than the Liam Scales kind of model or Chris Ayer or Ryan Christie, where they come back and they're a better player for their loan deal. So there's a few players in that list who will be leaving. And I still think there's a few in there who are pretty raw and untested. Tellio, we've not seen anything from him. Your man at Celtic Down Under, Liam, reckons he's a top player.
Yeah. I mean, all of the boys that are based down in Australia that have seen Tellio, you know, it's not just. I mean, Jared is his biggest cheerleader, but everybody on the pod rates Tellio very highly. And you know, from what I've seen of him on the internet, whatever, yes, he clearly looks like a player. Any player coming into Scotland is going to need a period of adjustment, and his period has been elongated by the fact that he came here injured. I mean, the annoying thing is, right, the two J League games we played in summer would have been the perfect games to get him into the Celtic team, because it's a similar level to the Australian League. It's played at a similar pace. You know, he's not going to have to worry about some hammer thrower booting him 6 feet up in the air like he will when he plays in Scotland. You know, it would have been the perfect scenario to bring him in, but unfortunately, injury meant we couldn't do that. And yeah, I think he's the one that, you know, give it time. I mean, Kwon's another one. We've not seen him at all, apart from about 45 minutes in a friendly and a couple of sub appearances. You know, you can't judge guys when they've not played any games. You really can't. And I think that it's just an unfortunate sign of modern football that we need, like you say, we need to have this big squad, because professional teams that have aspirations to fight on the dual fronts of Europe and domestic want to be, you know, but 25-man squads. That's what we have now. But unfortunately, because we don't have any facility to play a reserve team like most civilized leagues do, we've got 12 to 15 guys every week who are sitting there kicking their heels with nothing to do. So
see the thing, Liam, right?
Yeah.
You know, talking about the reserve league, and I had a right good chat. I went to Hampden last night. Hampden, under the lights, Friday night football, Queen's Park against Partick Thistle, 2 each. Why was I there? Well, Friday night football. Got to taste it. Got to taste the atmosphere, Jerry. And I was talking to.
I hope you didn't taste the pies. They're minging at Hampden.
Are they? Oh. Listen. I'm off the pies, right? I'm off the pies. Macaroni pies, maybe. So I was talking to a lot of people who knew a hell of a lot more about football than me. What I mean by that is, you sit and watch a game and they can tell you things about tactics and shape and movement and all this kind of stuff that really opens your eyes to the tactical side of the game. And I love doing that. I'm a sponge to that kind of thing. And some of the ex-pros that I was talking to were talking about the reserve football. And they basically said, we went right back to it, they said, even if there's 4 or 5 teams in Scotland who are prepared to do it, get it set up. Because I know that a lot of the other teams weren't, they weren't going to ring fence. It was a 5-figure sum. They weren't prepared to run a reserve team because it was costing them money. Unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, even if once every season or two, that reserve team was able to give a young player enough game time and experience to allow them to develop and progress to the first team, it would be worthwhile, right? Look at that list of players that Stephen Sloan has listed there. They're not playing football, Jerry. They might be training every day. It's completely different. You need that intensity. Even if there was 4 or 5 teams, would it work? Play a round robin? At least they're playing some kind of competitive football.
Definitely. Here's what we should do, right? So,
I'm looking forward to this.
If there's any businessmen out there, right, why don't we start it up? So let's spearhead it. Let's get something going. You get enough sponsors, right? Get a league started, get a reserve league, get every club to chip in, every supporter of the club to chip in, or businesses around the clubs, and do it. I don't know the ins and outs logistically, but for 5 or 6 teams, like they say, if it's just that, then so be it. But I think there'll be many more than that. Many more. I always remember, I used to love it. I mean, you'd be able to tell if you've got future players coming forward and how good they were, all that kind of stuff, all the rumours. Not that I'd go to the games, but you'd always hear people talking about it. I just think people have just, as if they don't care, as if it's just, it's all right, we're doing enough with the first team, there's no point, but we're just losing so many of these, not giving the young talent a chance, and like you say, all these other guys are just stagnating.
I'm going to ask Jerry, because we know how it works in Scotland. Obviously, we've got an international base here, contributors from New Zealand and Japan, right? Was a big part of it, right? And I know we're kind of digressing a wee bit here from the actual team news. We'll get back to that. Was there a part of that, Ian, whereby they thought the academy was going to be a fix for everything? You were going to produce enough footballers from your academy that, they were just going to walk into the first team, and that has proved to be very difficult. Was that a big part of it? Was all the investment went into the academies rather than having that bridge between youth football and first team football?
I think so. I remember listening to, I think it was one of your podcasts with John Colquhoun a while back.
Yeah, John.
And it was a really, really, really good. I mean, I love to hear John talk about football, and the fact that he's not, and people like Brian McClare are not involved at that sort of grassroots level at Scottish football is a travesty, because they've got a lot to offer and a lot of intelligence and experience, obviously. I think, you used to have it when we were younger, didn't we? You had the reserve league, right? And there's a couple of guys I know that played. Like one played for Sunderland. I went to school with a boy that played for Sunderland. I remember used to talk to him, and he played against players like Gary Parker in the reserve league, and they were kids coming through, and there was big expectations of him at Sunderland. And he was saying it was invaluable to play against these players that played. I think he was at Villa at the time or somewhere, but he was obviously coming back from an injury. Gary Parker, another guy played for his university. It's a different level, of course, but he played his university when it was the Euro '96. He's playing, and the Romanian team was based in Newcastle, so they played against the Romanian team, and he was marking Hadji. No, he wasn't a professional footballer.
The real Hadji, Ian.
The real Hadji, and he said it was just like chasing shadows, but. The fact remains that you've got, for the younger players that are developing, they're playing against old pros, so they're learning how to play against men. They're learning. It's a thing you can't replicate in the academy system. You can't get this a conveyor belt and replicate real life. And that was the thing that John Colquhoun was saying. It's receiving the ball under pressure. All the things that come part and parcel with playing football under pressure. That's the closest thing you can replicate to playing the first team in that pressure. So. You can have the best coaches in the world, but you can't create that environment where people need to be able to perform under pressure. So I concur, Jerry. let's do it. Let's some petition going and get a lot of people with deep pockets and get something going. They did it with Sky, didn't they? Let's become like Rupert Murdoch-esque.
Definitely. Do you know another thing? Sorry for cutting in. Like, do you know what I remember when I was a kid? Do you remember Celtic reserve goalkeeper? It's Alan Morrison. He was from Prestwick. And I'm talking years back when I was at school. And I remember everyone's like, Alan's playing with the reserves. So I remember everyone playing their heart out anytime there was a school game in case there were scouts, because there was always that chance that you think you could get into one of these clubs because of the reserves. And I don't know if that's kind of died off because I'm not a kid anymore, so I don't know how they feel. But I always remember that buzz that we could maybe get into the reserve team or the under-19s, then into the reserves, all that kind of stuff. But something needs to be done. Can I play devil's advocate and throw a spanner in the works here with that argument as well, though?
Sure.
When it comes to the national team and the young players coming through, there's never been a stronger young team coming through in the national team than there is right now, I don't think, in my lifetime. So I don't think it's affecting like our Scottish players not having that, because we seem to be developing really well. Or am I just getting ahead of myself?
I also think Celtic are developing players, Jerry, but the pathway isn't at our club, and they end up leaving and going elsewhere, and that's a big issue. And let's hope that Vata's not the next in a long line of young guys that do leave. Grant Call, yeah, you're right. International Acsom. That's how we like to, that's how we like to try and get a full variety of opinions and views from the Celtic fan base. Plunge McNugget, here we go. Brendan hasn't won there as a manager. Hope the players are not tired. It's going to be a hard game. It will be hard. And I think Brendan will approach it with that in mind. He's no one there, so it won't be like a hex. It won't be like a hat on a bed. It will be, no, let's put this right. And then we've got Joe Hamilton. This is an important one from Joe. You're sitting in an Austrian hospital waiting room, hoping that your pal is okay. He fell as we were working on his roof. So in the meantime, I am watching my favourite show. Well, all the very best, Joe, to your mate. Hopefully,
all the best, mate.
He was supposed
Get well soon, pal.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Barry O'Sullivan, do we know how long Rio is out for? I don't think so. From what I was hearing, it was just, at the moment, it wasn't diagnosed in terms of the length of time he was going to be out. Let's hope it's not to the end of the year, Barry. But, as we've said before, one door closes, another door of opportunity opens. And Double Denim comes in. Afternoon, guys. Looking forward to the match today. Enjoying the consistency of our lineup and keen to see Bernardo build on his good midweek performance. O'Reilly and Kyogo on the score sheet again today. I hope so. You remember the first time round, Liam, a young guy called Kundai Benyu got a run for a few weeks. You remember him?
Yes.
Kundai Benyu. Where is he now? I think the quality of bringing in a Benfica kind of under 21 internationalist is a slightly different proposition, and he is deserving of that jersey. And when you're looking at the lineup, and obviously the dust is settled on Wednesday night, Liam, what I noticed about it, and maybe I was guilty of it myself, Greg Taylor got a wee bit of stick, didn't he? Because he gave away the penalty and he failed to block out the pass for the equalising goal, the second goal. Great finish it was as well. But the more I see that second goal, that pass from Taylor through to Maeda was absolutely sublime, wasn't it? Do you think he gets too much of a hard time, from the fan base, Liam?
Yeah, he does. He does, because the thing is, when your team don't win a game, and this is not just Celtic, this is football in general, right? When your team don't win a game, the psychology of it is you can't just. It's not just we get beat or we get outclassed. It's always got to be somebody made a mistake or it's somebody's fault. And unfortunately, defenders and goalkeepers are the ones that tend to come in for that bit of stick. And in this case, it's Greg Taylor, because you're able to pinpoint a single mistake that he made amidst what I thought otherwise was a very good performance from him. And that's the thing. People don't remember the pass for Maeda. They remember giving away the penalty. It's the same thing as I say about goalkeepers all the time. A keeper could make 8 or 9 world-class saves, but if he has a clanger in the last minute, that's the only thing everybody talks about for the next week.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those. Right. I think it's really unfair. I think the whole team were excellent the other night. Remember, everybody who was being realistic expected us to get absolutely gubbed on Tuesday, and we didn't. So I really think.
By the way, you were disappointed with the 2-2.
I know. Even though I predicted it,
Yeah, you did.
You do.
The sweepstake, absolutely. And I think Kevin McCluskey did as well, but then he changed his mind after speaking to me because I was being so upbeat about it. Brown Warrior, you raise a point there. Who does Vata get a game of? You're right. He doesn't get a game ahead of anybody right now. And I think that, going back to the argument or the discussion around reserve football, if you've got a situation where him and Mikey Johnston are vying for a place on the bench, they're proving themselves at the moment. They're proving themselves at Lennoxtown at training. But I think it would be different if they were doing it in games, So, yeah, you're right. It doesn't at this moment in time. But I do think we need a different platform where that they can actually showcase their talents and push their way into the first team. And whether or not it happens, who knows? We will continue to discuss it. All the ex-pros I speak to certainly think it should. Quick predictions. I'll run round the room, starting with yourself. Jerry, are we going to get the monkey off Brendan's back today?
Yes. We're going to win 5-0.
Oh my!
I'm going 5-0. I know it's bold. And by the way, I had a pee next to Mark Burchill the other day.
We'll come back to that maybe at half time. That sounds like an interesting story. 5-0 says Jerry. Ian, you got a prediction at the back of 2 in New Zealand?
Yeah, I've got a positive one and I'm not so positive one. Two results keep swirling around my head. I've got 3-1 in my head to Celtic, and I hope this one doesn't happen. Or a 1-1. So hopefully it's the former. It's the 3-1.
I'm going to stick to that former result, Ian. I'm going to say 3-1. Memories of Celtic playing in yellow away jerseys at Easter Road. 3-1 victory, yes. Liam, what about yourself?
I think Brendan Rodgers is going to take that monkey off his back. He's going to absolutely scalp it to the point that the RSPCA have to be called. I'm going 6-0.
6-0. I love that. Brilliant.
Are you going for 6? That's good. I don't feel as risky now, right? That's all right.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that urinal story at half time. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the chat. As always, it's always a pleasure. We'll see you at half time. Thank you to Jerry, Ian, and Liam for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.